Karibu sana. Yes, we're waiting for you to start. Okay. So we are starting Exodus chapter 12. Remember in chapter 11, we were talking about the last plague. Basically, in chapter 11, the warning is given about the firstborns dying. And then in chapter 12, we see the institution of the Passover. Passover in Isaiah chapter 12. This is the first mention of the word Passover. And as we go through chapter 12, you'll understand why it is a big deal in even Christianity and both in Jewish, in the Jewish Judaism religion. Okay, so chapter 12 of Exodus, verse 1. So while the Israelites were still in the land of Egypt, the Lord gave the following instructions to Moses and Aaron. So this is like an interjection before the story continues from chapter 11. There's an interjection up so that the story continues. We are told that this information comes much earlier. This event happened much earlier than what is being spoken about in chapter 11. So when the Israelites were still in the land of Egypt, the Lord gave the following instructions to Moses and Aaron. From now on, this month will be the first month of the year for you. Hii month gani? Hii month yenye waliambiwa inaitwa Elul. We will see that. We'll look at them actually today and see how different their calendar is from ours. We'll see. Then verse 3, announce to the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each family must choose a lamb or a young goat for a sacrifice, one animal for each household. So this month was supposed to be their first month. It's not like they didn't have a calendar, but now God wants to form a country that is called Israel. And one of the things you need as a country is a history, thing that will give you unity. So one of the things that gives people unity is having the same calendar. And this is when the Jewish calendar basically took shape. Okay. I think if we look at, let me see if I have it here. So somebody tried to draw a circle that shows both the Hebrew and the Greek, the Hebrew and the Gregorian calendar. The one we use is called Gregorian, and we'll find out why as we continue. Gregorian. The one you're using is called Gregorian. And any name you can see from there? May. The ones that are inside, the dark ones, on black, white written on black, those are the Gregorian months. The outer circle is what we call the Jewish calendar months. You can see them. The Elul you were saying, Elul is in September, August. Any other month you see? Adar, Shivat, Tevet, Kislev, Chesvan, Tishi, Lafu Elul. In Hebrew, V becomes the one, like the one that we have in African languages. When you want to say the V sound, it's not B, and it's not V. There's that sound that is in, I think, most Bantu languages. Baba, Baba, see Baba. That sound is the one that they say V in Hebrew. So it's Ab, Shevat, Nisan, Yar, Sivan, and then you can see their corresponding months in Gregorian calendar. And the main difference between the Jewish calendar and our calendar is that theirs is based on the moon, ours is based on the circle of the earth around the sun. So let's just look at a few facts about this Jewish calendar and try to understand it better. Nissan without double S, the other double S is called, that's a car. This Nissan is the ecclesiastical new year. So for Jewish religious calendar, in the Jewish religious calendar, the first month is called Nissan. We are together. And the date from which month and festivals are counted. So, for example, Passover is counted using Nisan as the first month. This is very crucial. You have to get this one from the beginning. So, Nisan is the first month when you're talking about religious events. So, for example, what we have read in Exodus is based on Nisan. So, that first month is called Nisan. That's Passover, which begins on 15th Nisan, is described in the Torah as falling in the first month, while Rosh Hashanah, which begins on 1st Tishrei, is described as falling in the 7th month. This Rosh Hashanah is also another New Year month, but this is for agricultural cycles. So we are together? So they have 2 months that are first of the year, depending on what you're talking about. Tishrei is that month, and it corresponds roughly with you can see Tishrei, September, October-ish. And this Nisan is roughly which month? Our month? March, April. Yes, that is it. And then that's one of the reasons why Passover for us, Passover for them is also Good Friday for us. And Good Friday is normally around that period, March, April, sometimes into May. Okay, let's continue. Since Passover is required to be celebrated in the spring, it should. The month for agriculture, which one is it? Tishrei. Yeah. Tishrei is the so when Rosh Hashanah, this is the name for the calendar that is based on agriculture. Yes. And then that calendar begins with Tishrei. The first of Tishrei is the first month. Okay, and then since Passover is required to be celebrated in the spring, it should fall around and normally just after the vernal spring equinox. Kizungungumu. Aya. Anajua equinox ni nini? Equinox. Equinox kwanza, wacha vernal equinox.
Almost like midnight. Center, like the equator.
So is middle, but nox.
Equinox.
Mm-hmm.
It's a meridian.
I tusome tu equinox. During the equinox, the sun crosses the plane of Earth's equator, making nighttime and daytime roughly equal length all over the world. So that the point which, the sun, remember the globe, the world. So sometimes, because it's the one that revolves, there are points when the sun, the earth is so directly over the sun, so that the equator is directly pointing to the sun. And during that day, the night and the day almost have the same equal hours of the day. So daylight, nighttime is roughly the same, but not exactly the same, because the world also, there are people who are far north and far south. So that's the equinox. And there are 2 of them in a year. The 2 equinoxes occur around March 20-21st. So around 20-21st of March, kuna kuanga na equinox. And so if you want to time the next one, it's September 22, 23, around there. So if you want to see when equal day, equal night kind of day will happen, is around September 22, 23rd. And then those are the times when people used to mark seasons. So the first equinox here, March, that one is the one that starts springtime. Sawa. And then the second one in September, that's the one that begins autumn. Autumn goes until December 21st, 22 also. December 21st, 22 is when winter begins. Baya sisi ni watu wa equator. Tuko na mvua na jua peke yake, which is a good thing. But for the people who are on far north and far south, they experience seasons in the extremes. So in the north, when the north is winter, the south is summer. So when, for example, in America, it's winter time, people in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, they're having their summer. And then when it's summer in the north, it becomes winter in the south. But people who are in the tropics, for us, April, we normally say, yeah, July is very cold. And strictly speaking, actually, for us in Eldoret, we are on the northern hemisphere. Nairobi is on the southern hemisphere. So we are us and Nairobi is southern. Karibu sana. Okay, if the 12th full moon after the previous Passover is 2 compared to the equinox, so the equinox is one of the things, because remember, they were saying that according to the Jewish understanding, they were told that Passover has to happen in spring. It has to happen in spring. So if the 12th moon after the previous Passover is too early compared to the equinox, so the moon has changed before equinox comes, a 13th leap month is inserted near the end of the previous year before the new year is set to begin. So the Jewish calendar has sometimes 13 months. And the idea is to ensure that, for example, Passover doesn't fall anytime outside the springtime. So they have a leap month. For us, we have a leap year. They can insert, you can find a calendar ya Jew, iko na 13 months. Okay? They are strange, but they are God's people. Okay, and then according to normative Judaism, the verses in Exodus 12, verse 1 and 2 require that the months be determined by a proper court with the necessary authority to sanctify the months. So it was the Sanhedrin that used to decide whether this year we had a 13th month or we let them stay 12. As the court, not the astronomy, has the final decision. Hata kama astronomy nasema differently, Sanhedrin wakisema ni hivi, that's what the people will follow. Tuko clear mpaka hapo, tusiache mtu nyuma. Karibu sana. Yes.
So every time that we determine a calendar year.
No. Now for that one, somebody sat down and calculated all the future ones. So we have already it's set for now. We'll get to that as we go on. Nowadays, the day most commonly referred to as New Year is First Tishrei. You notice what ile calendar bili. So this is, according to the Jews, this is the first of the year. Roughly, it corresponds to, remember, September, October. So the Jewish New Year is normally around September, October, our September, October. And that is the first day of their month called Tishrei. Rosh Hashanah, basically the meaning of that Rosh Hashanah ni head of the year. So it's the head of the year is Rosh Hashanah. That's the first one. Kichwa ya mwaka ni hiyo. So even though Tishrei is the 7th month of the ecclesiastical year. So notice they have an ecclesiastical year and agricultural year. When they're talking business, they talk Rosh Hashanah. When they're talking events, the celebration religious, they go to the one that begins with Nisan. Okay, so first Tishrei is the civil new year and the date on which the year number advances. So first Tishrei, they move to the next year. Whatever year they are in, they move to the next year. Tishrei marks the end of one agricultural year and the beginning of another, and thus first Tishrei is considered the new year for most agricultural-related commandments, including Shemitah, Yovel, Maser Rishon, Maser Rishoni, and Maser Ani. But they must be very important events. And then the Torah speaks of the annual cycle of holidays. Holy days, that's where the word holidays came from. Holy days. Holidays. And festivals, and it was systemized by the sages before the fall of the Second Temple in 70 CE. That's what they mean. This cycle of holidays and festivals has been determined since 70 AD. So sahi hakuna mtu anaenda kukaa chini kudetermine when Passover should be. Those have been systemized already by wise people in Israel. And then in secular texts, Jewish time is often noted as AM. Notice for us, when we say 2023, we say, after that, ni AD. meaning AD means Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, basically roughly translates to that one. So meaning that this is 2023 since Christ came, and see accurate, but that's what they mean. Basically 2023 years in the year of our Lord. Before Christ came, they used to say BC, before Christ. There are people, even the Jews themselves, those who are not Christians, they don't like the way we refer to time. So they don't add a D after the year. They have come up, you see, like this 70 CE is written 70, but it should be 70 AD, by the rate 70 CE, meaning common era. And then before Christ, they just say BCE, before common era. The main motivation is that they don't want to refer to Christ, Jesus. But Christ is winning so far. So for them, instead of saying AD, if you are using their calendar, they add AM. So, and AM means Anno Mundo, years of the world. Occasionally, AM is explained as standing for Aera Mundi, era of the world. It's an interesting thing because this system of Jewish time is called the mundane era, English for era mundi, because those who invented it believed they were calculating dates from the birth of the world. So according to them, they believe this calendar is continuous from the first time Adam came here on earth. Actually, from the first day things were created. So it's a continuous calendar for them. And we'll get to know what year we are in as we continue. The rhythm of Jewish time is determined both by the sun and by the moon. The rhythm, but not the calendar. They take, because for example, the Sabbath begins when the sun sets. So the sun contributes to that one. But the months, the weeks even are based on the moon. So the sun does help, but the main thing that carries their concept of time is the moon. Following Genesis chapter 1, in which the refrain, it was evening and it was morning, sums up each day's creative work. Judaism measures its day from one evening to the next. Haya. So wale mlikuwa shuleni, mnakumbuka wasidia walikuwa wanaanza sabato siku gani? Walimkam Friday. So sunset on Friday ndio Sabbath inaanza mpaka sunset Saturday. So for the Jews, the day does not begin at midnight. The day begins with sunset. So watu wanafaa kuanza kama you begin the day sleeping and then you wake up to work. How does that sound? But amazingly, that's actually how God, according to God's concept of time for us also, it was supposed to be evening and then morning, the first day. But we go to the calendar and the Western concept of time. We sleep in one day, we wake up in another. Sindio? Unalala Thursday, unaamka Friday. The Jewish day begins with night and ends with day. This is the reason why all Jewish holidays begin in the evening before the first day of the observance. The week is meant to be coordinated with 4 phases of the moon. Therefore, roughly speaking, 4 weeks makes a month. So 7 days, for the moon to change from one phase to the next takes about 7 days. Tuko pamoja? So ile uso ya moon, for it to change from one to the next, it requires 7 days. So they say basically for it to go one lap until it comes to the first phase, it is 4 weeks, 4 phases, 4 times. And that's roughly the month, 28 days, 7 times 4. Tuko pamoja mpaka hapo, tusiache mtu maths ikianza kuingia. And roughly 12 months make a year. And you can see they say roughly 12 months make a year. Okay, since, however, the 12-month lunar year and the 365-day solar calendar do not overlap exactly. So if, for example, you took 28 days to represent every month, how many times 12 hiyo itakuja ngapi? 12 times 28. Watu wa maths hakuna? 336.
Yes.
And then you see the solar calendar is 365. Hii yetu. So difference ya masiku ngapi? 365 minus 336.
11.
So 11 days missing. So if we were to continue this way, tutawaacha nyuma kwa sababu miaka yetu ya 365 itaenda mbio. And then kuna pali actually we'll gain a whole year. After a very long time we can gain a whole year. Na wao bado wako another year. The Gregorian calendar that has become the standard world calendar has months of an equal length that no longer correlate with the phases of the moon, and has to insert an extra day every 4 years, the leap year, in order to have the calendar reflect the solar year. So Gregorian calendar ndio yetu, and the days of the month are not exactly 28. There are days that have 30, 31, and 28. And those days are put there so that at least we take 365 and a quarter days for a year roughly. And then this quarter, the time that the sun takes to go around, the earth takes to go around the sun is 365 and a quarter days. Sawa? 365 and a quarter days. And then that quarter times 4,
1.
inakuwa 1. So that is the leap year. So if you count 4 quarters, that fourth one unafaa kuongeza 1 ndio urudi at least the point at which we were ndio tukue hiyo point next year tena. Otherwise tutaanza kurudi nyuma, losing the days, and we'll see that as we go on actually, but we'll understand as we go on. Then kuna rabbi anaitwa Yossi ben Halfat, mtu asome hiyo mwenye anajua Halafta is from the 2nd century, that is around year 100s. He calculated Molad Tohu. Molad Tohu is the birth from nothing, which is the beginning of the earth, and basically when the creation happened, to be the 4th hour of Monday, October 7, 3761 BC. So msee alikaa chini akacalculate whatever he was using. He came to the conclusion kwamba the world was created saa 4 on Monday, October 7, 3761 years before Christ. So ukiongeza 2023 ni roughly how many years tuko duniani? 5 na kitu, si ndio? Haya. Huyo ni Rabbi Yossi. Then kuna mwingine anaitwa the historian de Vignoles stated in the introduction to his treatise on chronology that he had found well over 200 different calculations of the time from the birth of the world to the fall of the second temple, and that they varied by as much as 3,500 years. So kuna watu wamesha calculate by the time huyo msee anakuja, there are people who had calculated 200 different ways to try and find out when the world began, and the discrepancy ilikuwa very big, 3,500 years in some. That is a lot. And then well into the rule of Queen Victoria mwenye ni great grandmother wa Queen Elizabeth, the most commonly given date for creation was the year 4004 before the common era, before Christ basically. And this was calculated by a bishop called Usha, and he published this date in 1654. So yeye pia alicalculate akasema, and for him he was using the dates, for example in Genesis wakisema ati when Abraham was doing how many years ago begot somebody, and then that's how he came to this one. To this day, those Jews who believe the biblical accounting of time to be literal still accept Rabbi Yossi's calculation, dating creation to the year 3761 BCE. Do you think the world is this young? Acha niulize hiyo question yenye inakuwa controversial. Kwamba hatujafika 10,000 tangu Adam akwe dunia ni about 6,000 years at most.
It contradicts itself.
Mhm.
Because scientists also says they get fossils and says it's a million years and something.
Mhm.
And also it seems like there's some error
In the Bible ama in the science?
in the science.
Okay.
Because some are saying a million years that this thing has existed for a million years.
Mhm.
And now here we see that the dates are not yet even a million.
Mhm. Even 10,000. What's a million? Aha. Anto, what are your thoughts? Hautaki kusema ama una? Okay.
I'm looking at what the best.
Mhm.
These figures are coming up. They are pretty close to 4,000 and 3,700. It's pretty close.
Mhm.
So on average, they're working within an area of between
300.
3,700 and 2,800. So looking at the source of rate of calculation, it's a history of the word of God, the Bible.
Mhm.
That's where they're basing their word.
Mhm.
And if this word is inspired of God and it is true,
Mhm.
then those people will.
Okay. Aha, Janet.
And also one
Mama tusijisumbue tuko. Tumeshafika.
the same Bible says that it is for God to see the matter
Mhm.
and for kings to find out.
Okay. Haya, wacha niulize tu question moja. Adam wakati aliumbwa, how old was he? How old was Adam when aliumbwa?
Aliumbwa. He just became an adult.
So alikuwa nakaa akona 1 day old, lakini how old was he looking?
An adult 18 years.
And then actually development ya watu daktari wewe. Do you know how when it is physical development inaishanga wakati gani?
I'm not sure. 22, 28 weeks.
Ile an adult mtu there's no more development. 25 hapo. Actually they say hii part ya huku mbele ni develop plus to in front decision. So maybe Adam kama aliumbwa full na ni kama sisi alikuwa around 25.
But it also created a sibling that went through those things and teach, God will teach him values, take this there.
Nani alikuwa anamchunga?
It's Mungu. It's created.
Ya ubaya hakuna kwa Bible.
It's not documented, but it's not normal Christian time.
For Adam it's very easy.
And if he was created,
Mhm.
well, I'm disputing whether he created an adult.
Mhm.
Because after that, God allowed man to be born, who was created in his image, replica.
Mhm.
He will be at some tender age, then we will allow until we get that adult age.
A good question.
Adam may have been
A baby.
made to go through the whole process. From creation, maybe as a tender kid.
So alizaliwa ama
No, he was
aliumba?
created.
So God aliumba mtoto.
Aliumba mtoto.
Okay, na Eve
He was made an adult.
So si Mungu hajashindwa kutengeneza adult.
By the story, the way it goes.
Even the Adam one is there because God breathed into him.
Much childishness in her because some things are not like
Sure, let's-
we see that.
yeah, tunaenda story ingine. The reason I'm bringing that story Adam up is because si Mungu anaweza umba dunia yenye inakaa mzee? Ama the world that is brand new but it looks like it has 1 million years. Is that impossible? Kama anaomba Adam mwenye ako 1 day old lakini anakaa 25. Yeah, so it's not limited to that. Okay, let's just tuendelee. Hii story ni interesting. Now, let's look at kwa hii Gregorian calendar. Hii Gregorian, mbona inaitwa Gregorian actually? The Gregorian calendar is the calendar used in most parts of the world. It was introduced on February 24 with the Papal Bull. Papal Bull ni declaration ya Pope. Pope kuna kiti akikalia huko Vatican ana make a decision that becomes a law. Sawa? So one of the Papal Bulls will happen Again, it happened most recently, sikumbuki exactly. But there's when they want to change something major, a pope will give something, and that is called a bull, and that becomes a law. So this was introduced on February 24th with a papal bull and went into effect in October 1582. So in February 24th, 1582, the bull was given, but it was put into effect on October of that year. And the Pope who put that into place was Pope Gregory the 8th. So ndio inaitwa Gregorian calendar. Sawa? And this was a modification of the one that was previous to this one, was called Julian calendar. Julian is from Julius Caesar. So Julian, the year. Then we'll come also to understand how year Julian in a relate to July. So 1582 is when the calendar changed, 1582 to the one that we have currently. So the change from Julian to Gregorian was this. The principal change was to space leap years differently so as to make the average calendar year 365.2425 days long, which is more closely approximating the 0.2422 day tropical or solar year that is determined by the Earth's revolution around the sun. Think Masi kianza kuwa mentioned watu wana panic, but notice difference ya hizi numbers mbili ni 0.0005 003 actually. Sawa? So hiyo ndio difference ili make to move from Julian to Gregorian. The leap year rule ni hivi, tunafikianga tunajua, but notice pale tunakoseanga. The rule for the leap year is this. Every year that is exactly divisible by 4 is a leap year. Divisible by C2, 4 is a leap year, except the year that is exactly divisible by 100. So if a year is divisible by 100, not necessarily a leap year. But if that year is divisible by 100, if it is divisible by 400, that's when it will become a leap year. Do you understand? Actually, I will make an example. The year 1700, they are divisible by 4, but see leap year, because it's divisible by 100. 1800 the same, and 1900, they are not leap years, but the year 2000 is a leap year because it's divisible by 400. By 4 also. The first qualification the year has to be divisible by 4. Category 2 it has to be divisible by 400, if I can put it that way. If it's a 100 year. So year 2000 was a leap year. There were 2 reasons to establish the Gregorian calendar. First, the Julian calendar assumed incorrectly that the average solar year is exactly 365.25 days. Hii ndio ile nilikuwa nimesema quarter day. 0.25 ni quarter, which was an overestimate of a little under 1 day per century. So every 100 years, we were losing 1 day. Every 100 years, we were losing 1 day. So meaning, in the circle of the earth around the sun, hii circle kama ilikuanga hapa leo tarehe ngapi, July 28th, next year, 100 years from now, it will be 1 day behind kwa hiyo cycle. Sawa? Unapata? Haya, an overestimate of a little of under 1 year and 1 day per century, and thus has a leap year every 4 years without exception. Wakakuja wakaona actually by the time they are changing it, the Gregorian form shortened the average calendar year by 0.00075 days to stop the drift of the calendar with respect to equinoxes. So walitumia equinoxes, ile siku yenye usiku na mchana inakuanga equal, wakaanza calibrate from there. Now the difference will make ni 0.0075 days to stop the drift of the calendar. And what is interesting hapa mbele wanasema pia there is the second reason why the move was done from Julian to the Gregorian calendar was in the years since the first Council of Nicaea in AD 325, the excess leap days introduced by the Julian algorithm had caused the calendar to drift such that the northern spring equinox was occurring well before its nominal 21st March date. Mnakumbuka hiyo equinox? So ilifika pali, Passover is happening outside. That's what they're saying. This date was important to Christian churches because it's fundamental to the calculation of the date of Easter. To reinstate the association, the reform advanced the date by 10 days. So alikuwa na calculate from 325 yeah, mpaka hiyo time ya 1500s, we had lost 10 days. The reform advanced the date by 10 years. Thursday, 4th October 1582. So hiyo siku ndio waliagree wanaanza calendar na change. So leo ilikuwa ni 4th October 1582. The following day was 15th October. You notice difference? So leo tuko tarehe 4 October, alafu kesho tunaanza na 15. Walipandisha na 10 days. So sijui hiyo siku watu walilipa aje kwa mshahara yao ama watu wa rent walilipa aje. So there's a day the calendar was shrunk by 10 days on this October day. I wish ingekuwa leo. Ilikuwa na months mingi. But unless wewe pia unaenda leave alafu unaambia leave imeisha. 15 10 days imekatwa juu ya leave yako. Okay, then the Julian calendar is a solar calendar of 365 days in every year with an additional leap day every fourth year without exception. The Julian calendar is still used in parts of Eastern Orthodox Church and in parts of Oriental Orthodoxy, as well as the Berbers of North Africa. So ukienda Ethiopia, the reason why their calendar is different from ours is because they use the Julian calendar bado. Sawa? Okay. Ndio nasikianga ni sijui au inakuanga sijui mwaka gani, siku mwezi gani yenye yetu inaendelea already. And then this calendar proposed by Roman consul Julius Caesar, the Julian calendar in 46 BC, was a reform of the earlier Roman calendar. So Julian calendar also took over from a Roman calendar, what you are talking about, which was largely lunisolar one, so moon and sun based. It took effect on 1st January 45 BC, 45 years before Christ, by edict. It was designed with the aid of the Greek mathematicians and astronomers. So the calendar of Julian also came into effect from 1st January 45 BC. And that is the one, ukisikia the years that are given during the time of Christ, they were basing it on the Julian calendar. The Romans were the ones who were ruling the world, so they enforced wherever they were going, this was the calendar that people were supposed to use. The calendar became predominant calendar in the Roman Empire and subsequently most of the Western world for more than 1600 years until 1582 when the Gregorian came over. Minor modification to reduce the average length of the year. We have gone through that and that's correct. The Julian drifts against the solar year. So Sahi, going back to the Hebrew one, the present Hebrew Jewish calendar was put into effect by Hillel. This is one of the Sanhedrin people, Hillel II, in the year 358 AD. CE, according to them, common era. Remember what I said earlier? They are avoiding Christ, so they say common era, but it's basically AD. So the present Hebrew calendar was put into effect. After this, now they don't calculate anything; they just follow what Hillel had put into place. They don't sit to have a court to determine when the Passover should be. Then the Hebrew calendar's mean lunar month duration discrepancy from current astronomical values amounts to only 1 day in 14,000 years. That is how accurate it is. For them to lose 1 day, according to their calendar calculations, it will be 14,000 years. So theirs is on point. I think there's a God hand in it, in this one. And then finally, the current 2022-23, what is corresponding to the Hebrew year, is which year? 5,783. So in Israel, mwaka yao saa hii si 2023 ni 5,057.83. Kuna watu wanasemanga habari iko kwa Bible kwamba God according to ile story watu wana misquoting Bible. To God, 1 day is like a. So kuna watu wanasema the world is supposed to last for 6 days and then the rest. So if 1 day equals 1,000 years, and the world is now 5,783, according to God, which day is it today? Thursday. Si ni Thursday, day 5 of the week. Day 5 of the week. So ikifika 6,000, that will be the 6th day. From that moment on to the 7th day. So kuna watu wanasemanga the end of the world will be 16th September 2240. When the year 6,000 of the years will get itafika. Hiyo ni hearsay. Uzuri Bible ishasema directly, you can't tell. No one knows the day nor the hour. Watu wamejaribu calculate, imewachenga. Yeah, so for now we know the Jews were 5,783, and probably they say this is how long ago the world was created. It was 5,783 years ago. Information ukitaka kupata mingi ya hizo nilitoa kwa hiyo Jewish Wikipedia, itakusaidia. You want to follow that one.
I have a question. Before Adam and Eve fell, were they living under time?
Yes, because already God had shall institute evening and morning the first day. So maybe not precisely like hours at minutes, second, hours, but they had the concept of time moves. And for them, it was days changing. And then there was, remember, the Sabbath gave them a rhythm of 7 days. So that also was a concept of understanding time for them. Yeah. So Nile, for us, what we've done is to add, we've divided the time into smaller portions. That we have even microseconds, milliseconds, sometimes, and they matter nowadays because kwa athletics squeezy, Omanyala, anashindanga mtu na 0.00 ngapi. It matters to us, but for them that was not necessary. They just needed to know roughly the days and the weeks, then the months. Okay, quickly let's go through the months of the year, how they came about, also that we have a bigger concept of the whole calendar. January, the month of January, is named after Janus. Now, for the Latin also, I think in Latin inaitwa language nyingine. In a Greek, the I becomes J. I yao inakuwa J. Sawa? Aya, so hiyo jina fully, which is the full name is Mensis Januaris, the month of Janus, basically in Latin, was the first month of the ancient Roman calendar, from which the Julian and Gregorian month of January was derived. Karibuni. So the month January, we borrowed from the Romans and their calendar. The month of the name January. It is named, let's see, continue. In the calendars of the Roman Republic, Januaris had 29 days. So according to the Romans, it had 29 days. 2 days were added when the calendar was reformed under Julius Caesar in 45 BC. So sijui kama wale watu na complainingi January ni mrefu, irudi 29 days. Original January ilikuwa 29. The Roman one that we borrowed had 29 days. But Julius Caesar in 45 BC, when he started the Julian calendar, added 2 days. So January has how many days? 31. Remember, mnakumbuka ile style ya count the how months alafu when bright usitutoe rangi. So January 31, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. So August na July ni 31 days, which is interesting. Mtu aligundua hiyo nini. And then January is conventionally thought to have taken its name from Janus, the dual-faced god of beginnings, openings, passages, gates, and doorways. So there is a god for the doorways. So ukitengeza mlango unafaa kupea sacrifice ama gate. Hiyo ni bomali. Yes, I think niko na picha huyo Janus hapa. Taniona. Ndio huyo. Huyo ni Janus. Haya, tuendelee. The dual-faced god of beginnings, openings, passages, doorways, but according to ancient Roman farmers' almanacs, Juno was tutelary deity of the month. Ule mtu anafundishanga university na hajakuwa qualified anaitwa? So hiyo jina imetokana na tutelage. So mwenye alikuwanga in charge of the month of January pia wanasema alikuwa anaitwa Juno. It's different from Janus. Juno is different from Janus. So there are some people who say Juno ndio alinemewa January. Then in the oldest Roman calendar, which the Romans believed to have been instituted by their legendary founder Romulus. Nakumbuka ile story ya Romulus alikuwa na brother yake anaitwa Remus. Oh. Isi ni wazee. Na wengine wana idea. Kuna kitabu ya English ilikuanga nayo. Kuna kitabu ya English ilikuanga na story ya children two twins when walikuwa taken care of na wolf.
Oh, and they gave birth to the Roman.
Yes, civilization. Unaona? So Romulus, out of Romulus is what Rome is named after.
Okay.
Romulus is the father of Rome. So Rome is Romulus. Roman. Yeah. The first month was interesting. The oldest Roman calendar yenye ilikuwa ilianzishwa na Romulus, the founder wa Rome. The first month was which month? Martius, the month of March. And the calendar year had only 10 months. Sawa? So 10 months, the first month ni March. And then Januaries and Februaries were supposed to have been added by Numa Pompilius, the second king of Rome after Romulus, originally at the end of the year. So January and February at the beginning is ziliongezwa to the 11th and 12th months. Sawa? March ndio number one bad. So to understand actually why, and even now that still is in effect your concept. We'll understand why shortly. So let's go to February. Februarius, or rather is called Mensis Februarius. The month of Februa was the shortest month of the Roman Atasai, from which the Julian and Gregorian month of February is derived. Februarius was the only month in the pre-Julian calendar, before Julian calendar, to have an even number of days numbering 28. This was 29. 29 actually. Hii ndio ilikuwa 28 pekee. This was mathematically necessary to permit the year itself to have an odd number of days. So the reason walikuwa wameweka February ikuwe na 28 is so that, remember there are 10 months, 29 times 10, 290. But if one month has one day less, 289, which is a not number, that's whatever they wanted it to mean. Walikuwa wanataka ikuwe hivyo. Tunakuja hapo. Ancient sources derived Februaries from Februarium, a thing used for ritual purification. Most of the observance in this month concerned the dead or closure, reflecting the month's original position at the end of the year. Remember, for them, this was the last month of the year. So there's like a thing used for ritual purification in Februarium. Out of that is what we get the word February. Nani alizaliwa February hapa? Nani alizaliwa January? Janus. Okay. Atakuja tu zenu. There is this month but haiko kwa kalenda zetu. This is also the root word for Mercedes. No, this is March. Tutaangalia kidogo. Macedonius is Latin for the work month. This was an intercalary month of the Roman calendar. The resulting leap year was either 377 or 378 days long. So this is the month they added sometimes into their calendar to make it a leap year. Sawa? Hiyo intercalary ndio inamaanisha hivyo. And that resulted to the year being 377 days long. If you now calculate, ni 29 times 12 ni 30 times 12, 120 times 3, 360 minus 12. Yeah. So your leap year, leap month ilikuwa inaongezwa, ilikuwa inaitwa Macedonius. So it was not regular in the calendar, but sometimes they used to add it to kuongeza tu mwaka ikuwe leap year, ndio the day comes to 377, 378 days long. So a day. Hawakuwa na concept ya sun and the earth the way you have now. Walikuwa wanatumia hii star inakuanga hapa hii time, mbona haijakuwa? So wanaongeza mwezi ndio ikuwe hiyo part bado. That's what they used to inform. They were not accurate in that. So it theoretically occurred every 2 or occasionally 3 years, but was sometimes avoided or employed by the Roman pontiffs for political reasons regardless of the state of the solar year. So kama mzee anaona hii mwaka iko na 13 months itanisaidia, anaiongeza. Kama itamsaidia anaiacha nje. This is important because sometimes when you try to calculate, for example, the birth of Christ, it doesn't fall exactly on 0 BC or 1 AD. You can see the reason why. Kulonga na other hands inside trying to manipulate it. Okay, and then Macedonia was eliminated. Notice ilikuwa inamaanisha aje hii month? Work month. Yes. This was eliminated by Julius Caesar when he introduced the Julian calendar in 45 BC. So Julian calendar ilikuwa before the Gregorian calendar, eliminated the Macedonian one concept. Now this for them, they will introduce the 1 day lunar. So instead of doing a month, add 1 day after 4 years, because by this time they had a better understanding of the way the solar system works. Not perfectly, but they could make a few of the adjustments they needed to make by that time. And this was when it was added, it became the last month. See the first one, it was added to be the last month of the year Macedonians. And then March. Martius or Mensis Martius, which is March, was the first month of the ancient Roman year until possibly as late as 153 BC. So this was the first month of the year, March. After that time, the 3rd month following February and preceding April. March was one of the few Roman months named for a deity. It's called Mars, kama the planet, who was regarded as an ancestor of Roman people through his sons Romulus and Remus. So according to them, the Roman people descended from this god called Mars. March marked a return to the active life of farming, military campaigning, and sailing. So this was one of the things that used to happen when March comes around. Nani alizaliwa March? Ndio hiyo. So pole waliwanyang'anya namba yenu, ungekuwa the first month. April. Hii inadepend ulienda shule wapi, nasoma aje? April. Read for us this word. Yeah? Yeah. We are correct. Hizo zenu waziko. So Aprilis or Mensis Aprilis, April was the 2nd month of the ancient Roman calendar. Remember, if March is the first one, April is the 2nd one, and it was before May. And on the oldest Roman calendars that had begun with March, April was the 2nd month of 10 months in the year. April was 29 days on the calendars of the Roman Republic, with that day added to the month during the reform in the mid-40s BC that produced the Julian calendar. So ilikuanga na 29 pia, wakaongeza siku hizi April iko na 30 during the Julian Reformation. I am May, sisi watu wa merry month of May, the best month of the year. Mayas or Mensis Mayos, May was the 3rd month of the ancient Roman calendar, following April and preceding June. On the oldest Roman calendar that had begun with March, this is the 3rd month of the 10 months in the year, and May imekuanga na 31 days. Mimi nizaliwa tarehe 30. The Romans considered May an unfortunate month. Although it began with one of the most notoriously sexually immoral holidays of the Roman calendar, Games of Flora, and don't Google that one. I tried, it's not good. So, and then kuna kuanga na festival inaitwa Games of Flora. Flora, by the way, is one of the most ancient goddesses of the Roman religion. Kuna fauna na? Unakumbuka fauna na flora? Fauna ni
Wildlife.
animals, alafu
Plants.
plants. So this is the goddess of flowers, vegetation and fertility. So the games of flora ziko related na huyo goddess.
Not a little flower.
Waambie iwafikie. The merry month is the other month of June. On the ancient Roman calendar, Mrs. Eunice or Junius was Junius, also Junius. June was the 4th month following May. And in the oldest calendar attributed by Romans to Romulus, Eunice was the 4th month in a 10-month. The month following June was thus called Quintilis or Quintilis, the 5th month. Quint ni 5. Quint ni 5. Hiyo sijui. But 5 kwa Latin iko na quint. Squint ni squint. June had 29 days until a day was added. So Julian calendar iliongeza masiku. The month that followed was renamed July in honor of Julius Caesar. So tunaenda Julius. And then kitu interesting about football. Unajua Juventus? Ni nini? Hiyo ni? Yeah. So this was a god and kuna poem iko attributed to Juventus yenye iko na line yenye imeweka June na May. With the former, with June, Juventus says June comes from junior. So the word junior actually is related to Juno, junior, June, and or a younger person, in contrast to May, Maiores, the elders for whom May was named. So Juventus was the ancient Roman goddess whose sphere of tutelage was youth and rejuvenation. She was especially the goddess of
Young men.
Is it a wonder that football is for young men? Is it a wonder?
But you know, another name for Juventus, they call it the old lady. You know, the way.
Oh, so ni kweli. The old lady. So you're the goddess Juventus. The old lady is the one who's in charge of the youth and rejuvenation. Watu wa June ni wagani? Wewe ni wa June? Watu wa June ndio. Okay, July. In the ancient Roman calendar, Quintilis or Quintilis was the month following June and preceding Sextilis. Quintilis is Latin for 5th. So this July was supposed to be the 5th month of the year. It was the 5th month in the earliest calendar to be Romulus, which began with March and had 10 months. After the calendar reform was done, it produced a 12-month year. Quintilis became the 7th month but retained its name. Ilikuwa ni Quintilis inamaanisha 5th. But in 45 BC, Julius Caesar instituted a new calendar, the Julian calendar, that corrected astronomical discrepancies in the old. After his death in 44 BC, the month of Quintilis, his birth month, was renamed Julius in his honor, hence July. Notice huyu msee aliishi 1 year after amesha institute your calendar. Ali institute in 45 BC, the following year was 44 BC, he died. Quintilis was under the guardianship of the Roman supreme deity. So the July ilikuwa under the deity anaitwa Jupiter, with sacrifices made particularly to Neptune, which is another god, and Apollo. Like the modern month of July, this was one of the long months that had 31 days. So hiyo imekuanga na 31 days kuanzia kitambo. August. Sextilis, which is 6th in Latin, or Mensis Sextilis, was the Latin name for what is originally the 6th month in the Roman calendar, when March was the first of the 10 months. After the calendar reform, Sextilis became the 8th month, but retained its name, Sextilis, but it was renamed Augustus. Remember in the story of Jesus, kunakuanga na mahali when Caesar Augustus, hiyo jina, this was done in 8 BC in honor of the first Roman Emperor, Caesar Augustus. So huyo ndio huyo. Sextulus followed Quintilis, which was renamed July after Julius Caesar and preceded September from September, which means 7, which originally the 7th month. It has sometimes been thought that the month has 31 days. Remember July, August, because Augustus wanted as many days in his month as his predecessors. But in fact, the 31 days will from before and was created in the Julian calendar. So hiyo ndio July, ndio August, September, and August hapa. Isaac. September, the Latin septem, which is 7. Nani anajua French pia? French. Set number 7. So you based on Latin. On Latin set is 7. But September in which month of the year according to us?
9. But at that time it was 7.
Yeah, so the name still means 7. But you got number 9 kwa calendar yetu. Because remember, this was based on the calendar that had 10 months that began in March. So March was number 1 up to ilikuwa inacountiwa hivyo. And then they added, remember also what I said earlier, January and February when they were added at the end of the calendar, not at the beginning. And then it had 29 days. After the reforms, September became the 9th month but retained its name. A day was added to September in the mid-40s as part of the Julian reform. So ilikuwa pia imerudi ikakuja 30. October. Octopus iko na mguu ngapi? Octopus wako na yeah. Najua namba 8 kwa sababu Kibira kwetu ni namba 8 ya Octopus. Ndio hiyo yetu. Namba 8 ndio yetu. So October. Wataelewa by the way hiyo namba ni from Latin octo, which means 8. So octopus ni sababu iko na hiyo. Yeah. Actually, as you can post your video. Remember when the Bible talks about unicorns, people keep saying that the Bible is wrong. Hiyo ni mythical creature. But actually, a unicorn is just an animal that has one horn.
It's a horse like one horn, and the tail is one horn.
You know, the Bible, the way it describes, the Bible describe actually the unicorn ni rhino. Kuna 2 types of rhinos, more, but there are 2 main ones.
This one has wings.
No. Kwa Bible it describe him.
It's a celestial animal.
Yes, that one is a middle-aged creation. Yes, hiyo ulitoa si kwa Bible. Si kwa Bible. But I mention hizo vitu zote zingine umesema. Yes, but I mention hizo vitu zingine zote umesema wings, horse like hizo zote. So hiyo si Bible ni ulisikia mahali. Haya. Wacha tuendelee. So octo means 8. Was the 8th month of the old Roman calendar. It had 31 days mpaka sahi. After the calendar reform, October became the 10th month but retained its numerical name, Octo. And then some of the observances in October mark the close of the season for military campaigning and farming, which commenced in March. Yes. October was under the guardianship of March Bad, the god of March, Mars. So you can see military campaigning ilikuwa inaanza around March inaisha October. So mlikuwa mnapanga vita, mlikuwa mnapanga kuenda March. Hizo vita mnapigana, kila mtu anapigana, mko na consensus kwamba ikifika October tunaacha vita kwanza, tunarepumzika mpaka next year. November, as we get to the end, November comes from the Latin novem, which is 9. It was originally the 9th month of the 10 months of the Roman calendar. It had 29 days. In the reform, waliongeza siku moja. November became the 11th month, but retained its name. A day was added to November during the Julian calendar reform in AD. Ilikuwa 30 siku hizi. The outstanding event during November was the plebeian games from the 4th through the 17th. Hizo plebeian, you can look for them. Ilikuwa ni zina happen during the month of November. Some of the precursors to Olympics na gladiators. The month had few other festivals. Haikuanga na masherehe mingi, ilikuwa tu ni games hiyo time. It was under the guardianship or tutelage of Diana, goddess of in Ephesus. Home yake Ephesus. This nani wa November? Okay. The poor month. Hata tunaona haikuwa na nini mingi, haikuwa na event. December, from the Latin word meaning 10. Deca ni kitu iko na 10. Sawa? So December ni 10, which was from the fact that it was the 10th month, the last month of the year in the Roman calendar. Then when the calendar was reformed to create 12 months year starting in January, December became the 12th month but retained its name. Its length was increased to 31 days under the Julian calendar reform. Na hiyo ndio story ya the calendar. Any question?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I see BC.
Mm-hmm.
So it means 45 BC,
Mm-hmm.
44 BC. Please to count
Backwards, yes. Paka time ya Yesu, so 1 BC, 0, hauko na 0 but 1 BC alafu the next year 1 AD.
The other thing, like when you look at the horoscope,
Mm-hmm.
those like the gods and goddesses we were reading,
Mm-hmm.
are they the ones that are drawn in those things that people read?
No, normally hizo ni constellations.
Eh?
Ni constellations are stars.
Yeah.
But those constellations also are named, some of the stars in those constellations are named after gods, the Roman gods. Remember, this whole concept is, they took some of the things that the Romans were thinking, and then what the Greeks also were thinking, they merged them. And I think, sijui kama niko na hiyo hapa. Mnaweza soma hapo juu. Titans, jina Titan, si tumesikia jina Titans. The Titans, hata watu wao wanajitanga sisi ndio the Titans. And Olympians, Greek gods. So all the Greek gods pamoja wanaitwanga Olympians. And they are supposed to live on which mount? Mount Olympus. The highest mountain in Greece. So unaona wazungu wanafikirianga, sisi wa Afrika tunadharauingi vitu zetu zingine. Unaona vile wao walikuwa wanafikirianga equal until Jesus comes and makes things right for everyone. Even them, they had these gods who are living. For them, it was gods who are living on the highest mountain in their land. And then notice now, according to them, before this Gaia and Uranus, kuna other gods. I think I'll look for that one. But Gaia is the mother of the earth, Mother Earth.
Yeah, it's named after this.
So Mother Earth is a goddess. Na yeye na bwana yake anaitwa Uranus, the planet, father of the sky. So sky and the earth came together and they created the Titans. Those are Titans actually. Gaia and Uranus, their children, they wanaitwa the Titans, I think all of them together. So sikumbuke exactly how that works, but walikuwa na watoto. So Mother Earth and Father Sky had children. Mmoja alikuwa anaitwa Atlas, unakumbuka Atlas huyo mzee? Ule mzee amebeba dunia. Atlas anabeba dunia, si ati ndio god of the earth, mama yake ndio hiyo dunia. But he's the god of strength. So alikuwa anatafuta vile ya kumwonyesha yeye ni mtu wa strength, amebeba dunia yote. Amebeba mama yake. So huyo mzee Atlas ni mzee deadly. But also that's the name that gave us Atlas ya shule. Nakumbuka Atlas. Ukibeba Atlas umebeba dunia yote. Ni bright. So he's called the Titan god of strength. Titan god of strength. So hata jina Titanic has to do with somebody was naming it this way, alikuwa na feel ni as big as a god. Alafu kulikuwa na Oceanus, the god of the ocean. Rhea, the god of motherhood. Sijui ni Lea. Cronus, the god of chronometer, the god of time. Epimetheus, hii tujajua sana, the god of afterthought. Ile ukukumbuka afterthought ni ulikuwa umeshaenda alafu kao. So sijui kama ako represented. And then Prometheus, the god of fire. Sasa kwa baba hakuna. Yes, sasa hiyo ni Greek mythology. Yes. And then notice Rhea and Kronos ndio wako pia na watoto. Una notice hiyo wangu pale inatokezea hapo. So watoto wa Rhea na Kronos ndio Olympians, yeah, ndio Olympians. So the Titans ni watoto wa Gaia and Uranus. Sawa?
Yes.
Okay. So hawa watoto wa Rhea na Kronos, the Olympians, ndio kuna Demeter, a god of agriculture. Zeus is a name that we find in the book of Acts. The god of the sky. And then huyu unakumbuka Paul na Barnabas actually walipewa jina mahali. Waliambiwa hawa ni gods. Hermes na Zeus. So god of the sky, Zeus Barnabas aliitwa Zeus, the god of the sky, so he was mkubwa. And then Hera, god of marriage, Hades, god of the underworld, Hestia, god of home, Poseidon, god of ocean, so you are correlated aje na Oceanus. Poseidon, god of the ocean, and then Aphrodite, god of love. Sawa? Alafu huyu Zeus ako na mafans. Yeye hakuwa na bibi moja, alikuwa na wengi, ndio sababu hajaweka bibi zake wote hapo. Persephone, hiyo goddess of the underworld. Athena, the one after whom Athens is named. Unakumbuka Athens? The goddess of wisdom. Remember when the book of Acts talks about Athens, these people of Athens, what do they like doing? Discussing new ideas. What were wisdom na vitu kama hizo. Ares, god of war. Dionysus, god of wine. Hermes, huyu ndio Paul aliitwa god of the messenger, ama god of the message. So Paul, because he was the more talkative one, aliitwa Hermes. Barnabas akaitwa Zeus. So Paul alikuwa ni mtoto wa Barnabas. Apollo was the god of music. Artemis is the goddess of hunt. There's actually, I think, ni inaitwaje hivi vitu za NASA zinaenda zikipiga picha. One of them is called Artemis, goddess of the hunt, because it's looking for new planets, new things, so that's why it's called Artemis. And then Hercules, we know, amenemewa story mingi, is the god of strength. I don't know how they relate also na Atlas, but Hercules alikuanga na shida moja. Nini ilikuanga? Achilles. Yeah, unaona unajua myth. Perseus, god of killing. Hao ni god of war, Ares ni war, huyu ni killing. I think kuna representations zao, it's very hard to get all of them in one picture, but you can see Kronos. Kuna actually watu wa keyboard, kuna keyboard inaitwa Kronos. Cog Kronos. So it's a god. Like church. Yeah, and then unaona hao magods wao bado vile wanaendelea, and then somebody trying to represent them how they look like. Movies mingi zimetolewa juu yao wase, and then you can go and look at hizo kuna stories mingi about them, but they were myths meaning that the story that never happened. Hii ni picha ya Gregory, Pope Gregory the 8th. Huyu ndiye alichange calendar ndio yenye tunatumia mpaka sasa. Alikonga pope. Huyu ni Queen Juno, the goddess, queen of the goddesses, queen of the gods, goddess of marriage and childbirth. Juno. Huyu ndio probably alikuwa named June ama January pia saa nyingine watu wanasema. Anything else?
Don't you think by observing the January, February, and December that we are actually
worshiping
or rather
the days of the week? They also have the stories behind them.
Almost everything that I've come to realize, even Nike it's a type of God.
Nike is a god of win.
Yes,
Winning.
a lot of items that we celebrate that they're unique, they have that connotation of God and goddesses.
Yeah. Ikienda hivyo basi tusiende hata Olympics. It's the reason I can confidently continue using them. Somebody like Apollos in the book of Acts never changed his name. Yet he's named after a Greek mythology god. Kuna hata one of the friends of Paul, I think anaitwa Olympus or something kama hiyo. So you can see they were not, haiko inawabother. Even Jesus himself found the Julian calendar. Wakati wa Yesu, the Julian calendar is the one that was in effect. He never fought it or changed it.
Did he observe it?
Yes, actually, events zake zilikuwa based on that one. If he was dealing with the Roman government, the calendar they were using was the Julian calendar.
Talking about and we're having a discussion
Mhm.
about meat,
Mhm.
meat offered idols.
Mhm.
Is one of the things he said is that we know that idols are nothing.
Not good, actually.
They're nothing other than wood and stone.
Mhm.
So, and that eating that meat is of basically what he was trying to say is that it's of no effect because we know that they are nothing. They have no power in and of themselves. I don't know if that's the same reasoning I was thinking about these things. We know these things have no, in as far as we know as Christians, they have no power. They have no influence over us. So it's one of those things that they don't affect us.
Yeah, we'll be fighting a losing war together and fight his story together. The thing is, some demons can masquerade as these gods, but they are just demons. Wanajaribu kudanganya watu, they get worship and they get something out of it. But deep inside, we know they are not gods, they are nothing, there's only God. So sometimes when the Bible says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one," we normally don't think of it as a big thing. But every culture used to have gods, a panel of gods. So for God to come and tell them, "For you, Israel, the Lord your God is," that was counter-revolution. That was unlike anything else the contemporaries of Israel were thinking in terms of deity. Think eatable and summarize quickly about the difference between the months of the Roman calendar, the length before 45 BC, length as of 45 BC, and then the months in English. You can see the dates, the total of the days down there. Basically, the differences that have happened over the years concerning the calendar. Is there anything? Yeah, let's stop there for now, unless kuna question ingine. Reality. Hatukufundishwa how to budget or even how to make money. We were told how to be good employees. Sindio? Now we know. Let's go and do likewise. Make a difference out there in the world. Tumalizie hapo. Haya. Any other tuombe? Tuombe Isaac.
Father, we thank you for your name, for it's only you that we adore. God. So, Father, we thank you for this moment that you have allowed us to just delve deeper into an understanding of your word, oh God. May you keep on learning more knowledge even as we go our ways, oh God. We thank you that even as we lead home, God, may you be with us, guide us, and protect us. For it's in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Good, thank you. Asanteni kukuja. Have a good day. So tutaendelea na hiyo Exodus 12.